Hey guys. As promised, at long last, we're looking at Star Wars versus Warhammer 40K. Episode 1 is Emperors and Dark Gods. This one is for Spook. He asked for this a while back, and I'm only just now getting to it. You'll have to forgive me if I'm, not uh, up to snuff. I'm not exactly firing on all cylinders today. Um, don't feel the best I've ever felt. But let's do this. Maybe this will help a little bit. All right, let's see what we got. Very important we make the disclaimer because otherwise you get sued or demonetized or bad things like that.
Love the Emperor, for he
A
is the
fan with too much
salvation of
time.
mankind. Obey his words, for he will lead you into the light of the future. Honor his servants.
Graphics are excellent, really excellent.
Tremble before his majesty. Walk in his immortal shadow.
That must be from
Let us begin.
Battlefleet Armada, or what am I saying? Armada, yeah.
Stars dance in the eyes of the Emperor and roll in the palms of dark gods. Chapter Master Orion Phaedrus had heard such words before, and
Oh, so
often
this
they
is
were
like a
followed
story.
by tales of ships arriving at their destinations.
I was
before ever
assuming it
leaving for them.
was
Stories
going to be like an
about
analysis
entire
of the
battlefields
one
traversing
versus the
time
other.
in both directions at the apparent whims of the boiling warp. But he had never, in his 700 years of service to the Emperor, heard or read of anything quite like this. Confirm these reports, he ordered, his mind wary of demonic deceptions and alien illusions. The large man kneeling before his throne seemed to wince at that, raising his head to plead
Cataphract
and
the
speak.
armor.
We already have, my lord.
The astrogator said, exasperation thickened every syllable that slid from his wet lips.
8 times before it was reported to me, and then I personally verified it 10 times before bringing this report to the captain. My
That's a lot of
peers
verification.
verified it 5 additional times when
That's
it was
a lot
decided to
of
bring
verification.
This to you. With respect, your beneficence, there isn't any more verification we can do with our current instruments and personnel.
15 times is a lot.
What exactly are you suggesting? The ancient, half-machine warrior king asked, his voice as cold and calm as frigid steel.
I...
His head astrogator sputtered. He was a wide man, fat, and Orion had never had cause to speak with his current head astrogator
I've
person.
never heard of a fat astrogator.
The man was known for being marginally more competent than he was shamefully corpulent, and given that he required servo limbs to aid in carrying his anemic bulk around the ship, he was a fairly good astrogator.
I think we need to get closer.
He finally managed, mopping at his sweat-laden brow with a red cloth.
We must land within the nearest detectable system and verify what we are seeing with our own hands, if not our eyes.
The chapter master said nothing, leaving the man kneeling and sweating before his throne for almost a minute. Gradually, he nodded. Return to your station, he ordered, and the mortal kneeling before him wasted no time in
more like a tech
obeying,
priest.
hoisting himself off the ground with his spider-like assembly and shuffling from the metal antechamber that served as Orion's command center and bridge. A scant second after the astrogator had removed himself from view, Company Captain Aurelian Tex approached the command throne, saluting smartly to his commander. He was the youngest captain by far, barely cresting over 100 standard years of service.
I was actually
He
just
a
thinking he
prodigy
looks
within the
young.
Chapter, a genius with a sword, and an equally proficient pilot and gunner. As was typical within their order, the chapter master took some pains to keep the young captain close, both to mentor the man and to judge him. What do you make of it? The Marine asked. Orion did not speak, did not answer at all for a moment, as plans and probabilities boiled behind his yellow eyes. Eventually, he broke from his contemplation to ask his own question. Is Keela still incapacitated? The captain of the third company shrugged his shoulders with a soft, mechanical sigh. His face looked sour suddenly as he was made to contemplate the words of that mutant woman. The navigator isn't in critical condition any longer, he said curtly. But, the chapter master pressed, sensing more behind his subordinate's words. But she hasn't stopped crying. She insists that the Emperor is... that he must be... Don't. The chapter master warned softly. The captain nodded and quickly changed the subject. So, what do you make of it? He asked again.
Casual Space
Orion
Marine.
rose from his command throne, carefully lifting the sacred blade, the mighty Serpentis Venandi, as he strode over to one of the large, glowing hololithic displays. This one displayed the galaxy and indicated their current position several light years beyond its languidly turning borders. I cannot be certain, but my eyes are honed and often find the truth, and the truth that I perceive, the yield of my vigilance, appears to reveal that either something has utterly remade the galaxy in a way that was previously unthinkable to us, or when we tried to breach that thin tendril of the cicatrix maledictum, the warp flung us to the border of an entirely different galaxy.
Okay, now it makes
Perhaps
sense.
even a different dimension entirely.
Okay, yeah.
The
okay.
captain looked at the same
That's our
hollow
Deus Ex Machina.
coming to stand beside his master. His brows furrowed, and Orion knew without looking at him that he disagreed, even before the younger demigod spoke. Is there perhaps not another answer? The captain asked. I can see that the Eye of Terror is not present, but does that really indicate that we are within a whole different galactic disk? Is it not possible that we were merely lost within the warp for a much longer period of time than we expected, and that the Imperium conquered the warp while we were gone? Orion shook his head. It is not the lack of the miserable Eye of Terror that I find unbelievable. It is the missing Astronomicon that makes me think we cannot be looking upon our home. The captain shrugged. Perhaps it is just blocked. Such things have happened on the far side of the Cicatrix Maledictum. Orion laughed at that, a bitter, unamused sound. A fine theory, but blocked by what? The eye is gone, the tear with it. Other things could... The captain started to say. Crew, Orion interjected. Play the audio of the chief navigator's words. The last words she spoke before we had to drag her out of her nest. At this, the crew hesitated. My lord, are you sure? Asked one of the bridge officers. Orion nodded. Everyone present has heard it before. Your faith should not be so weak that you cannot bear to hear it again. At his prompting, the officer complied, adjusting some of the controls upon the panel he sat before. In short order, the voice of Keela Shastrava began to bleat over the
I guess he just didn't want to hear it till now.
Her words retched between bouts of sobbing and shuddering sorrow. By the weeping stars I can see. For the first time I can see. And my sight blinds me. Woe to us. Woe to the world. And the universe, for my eyes can see all, and yet the light of the Emperor has faded completely.
The soul binding.
Woe, woe to us.
So cut off from the Emperor, the soul binding. Her eyesight is restored? I guess it's possible, although, I was also under the impression it burned out their optic nerves. I think I remember reading that somewhere.
For our Lord in the stars shines no longer. Woe, we are made orphans, for our father has died.
Nope. just in a place far, far away.
Impossible. Stars
And in the far
danced at
distant
his command,
future.
rolled in the palms of his hands, and yet those deceitful little specks had hidden something from him, something enormous, something which could shift the careful balance he had spent the last 4 years creating. And the worst part about it was that he didn't even know, at least not yet, what precisely they had hidden from his sight. Palpatine had been informed of the unexpected gravitational disturbances by a mid-level hyperlane service report. Hundreds of thousands of ancient hyperlane buoys, most of which had been presumed to be underpowered and non-functional, had come alive nearly all at once. The report showed a cascading effect originating from a point in space a few hundred light-years away from Pazab, a backwater world at the very edge of the outermost part of the Outer Rim. The fact that Pazab had no buoys around it only emphasized the unprecedented nature of the disturbance. But this was not something that would have drawn his attention normally. The Dark Lord of the Sith was only marginally interested in space anomalies and phenomenon, and not at all if they could not expand
So 4 years after the
his
Clone
knowledge of the
Wars,
Force,
I
or
guess.
be turned to function within his design. A curiosity, and nothing more. That is what anyone reading this report would have drawn from it. But Palpatine had known about the disturbance well before the report had been delivered to him.
He felt
He
a
had felt it to a
disturbance in
different
the
vector.
Force.
The Force. Something dark had just entered into the near boundaries of his soon-to-be-claimed galactic dominion, something which screamed and howled in voices the darkside had never used before. Palpatine knew it could only mean one thing. Rivals. Grim forces of a darker galaxy had arrived to stake a claim on what was his. And the sense of them made him feel a power which he had been loath to use before. The intoxicating strength of fear added itself to his arsenal, for what he sensed now was no mere chaff to be blown away, no Jedi-like force to abuse and deceive. Crawling ever closer, he sensed a threat he had thought silenced forever when his crackling power had executed the drunk and foolish Sith Lord who had called himself Palpatine's master. The threat of other masters of the dark side, and the plurality he felt approaching only heightened the sense of danger he now perceived.
Interesting.
But even though he had already felt it,
Does that mean that tapping into the warp is tapping into the dark side? That's interesting.
the report was important.
And totally in keeping with 40K.
Vital, in fact. Because while Darth Sidious was a master of the dark side and deeply attuned to such things, Sheev Palpatine, kindly Chancellor of the embattled Galactic Republic, was most decidedly not. Initially, he thought to wait until the Jedi brought the matter to him, thinking they too would sense the arrival of the
So
oncoming
this is
threat.
during the
As
Clone
days
Wars.
dragged by, Sidious found himself vexed by his own
Okay.
competence. He had blinded the Jedi, and had done so with a great amount of intention. Even sitting within his room, speaking with him, surrounded by his dwarty statues, the Jedi could not catch even a whiff of his true nature. While he was a great deal more subtle than these newcomers, he was also a great deal closer to the Jedi, and these outsiders had not even entered the galaxy yet. By the time the Jedi realized the threat, it would destroy them, just as
I think this
surely
is
as
music
Sidious
from the
himself
from
would
the
have,
new
and that would
sequels.
not do. Thus, the report. And you really think this deserves this kind of attention?
A reptilian.
Asked the Jedi Knight Renfi.
Jedi.
Palpatine
Maybe a
smiled
Transdoshan?
calmly and
A
nodded,
Trandoshan?
completely negating his desire to scrunch his nose at the hissing, slurring accent
Trandoshan.
of the Trandoshan Jedi before him. It was bad enough to be a pathetic, parasitic reptile warming itself on the power of the Republic. Did it also need to be a Trandoshan as well? Most likely not, but I would like to be sure. These readings are quite unprecedented, and it stokes my anxiety to simply allow whatever is causing them to pass us by unobserved, he said, fingers folded in front of him on his wide desk.
Or is it pre-Clone Wars?
Suppose, the Jedi said. But why clones? Why not send a survey team instead?
Okay, so Clone Wars.
He added. The impertinent fool. Oh, I shall send scientists and researchers with you as well, the Chancellor assured. But it is unprecedented, so I would not send them out there without protection. Besides, we can never underestimate the enemy we are currently facing. Even if the Separatists have nothing to do with what caused these readings, they have buoys of their own. I cannot rule out the possibility that they will also attempt their own investigation. The Jedi considered for a second before nodding his assent. I see the wisdom in this, he said. Good, Palpatine added. Then I'd be glad to send you on your way as quickly as possible. Like I said, we don't want this phenomenon to pass us by. I already have a science team picked out and ready to go. How many battalions do you command currently? Currently, 2. Make it 4. I'll have you reinforced before you leave. The Jedi gave a shallow bow of respect, and Sheev smiled. Thank you, Chancellor, he said. Please, do not mention it. Simply promise me that you will take care to remain safe. Odd things are said to linger near the edge of the galaxy. Our war is maybe a month from its close. I'd not have you miss it because of a tragedy on the frontier. Keep your men close about you.
No, I wonder how he could predict that.
I will, Chancellor.
But this means this is the third year of the war.
Believe it might end so fast. Sheev leaned back and smiled. Trust me, my Jedi friend. I am an expert in such sorry things as war and peace. These matters can move suddenly, and mark my words, it will be over before you know it.
That's an interesting little cinematic. All right. That wasn't bad. Not a bad little riff. Okay. That was actually pretty interesting. I thought that we would perhaps be doing this in, the mainline Age of the Empire setting, but we're doing it at the end of the Clone Wars. That's actually an interesting change from what I was expecting. Now, obviously, this is going to be a small battle. It's maybe 1 battle barge, which means 300 Space Marines, which 300 Space Marines is more than enough to conquer a planet. We won't have to be worrying about Imperial-class Star Destroyers or anything like that. It'll just be Venators and maybe Victories, because this is a month before the end of the third year of the war, so I think the Victories were in service by that point. Maybe Acclimators. That's probably about it. Acclimator 1, Acclimator 2s. The thing I found most interesting was the fact that Palpatine is sensing these as other dark side users, which means that even if you're tapping into the warp, like a librarian or a astropath or a navigator. That means you're tapping into the dark side. That means everybody who's using the warp in 40K is tapping into the dark side. All right. Okay. Spook, thank you for putting me on to this. I think we will continue this one and see where it goes. What did we see? I think I saw it was like a dozen episodes or so. Yeah, we'll add this to the list of things to be revisited as we come to it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Also, it was actually Spook who mentioned it today when we were talking. We're up to almost 125 people in just what 2 weeks since we hit 100. And I owe it all to you guys. I mean, you guys are making the channel grow. I guess it's spreading by shares and word of mouth, which I appreciate so much. So you guys, thank you for everything you're doing. Do please continue to share, like, subscribe, so the channel will continue to grow. I feel almost silly asking you to keep doing that, given how much it's grown in the past 2 weeks. But I want it to keep on growing. I want it to keep on doing well. All right, I will catch you guys on the flip side, and I will proceed tomorrow night. Hopefully, we will see the end of Hell's Reach. Then we'll move on to some other stuff. Although there was a request from, I'm starting to write this stuff down, Omar Vernon for Baltimore's Alpha Legion, so we might do that before I head off onto the new stuff. All right. You guys have a good night. Take care of yourselves. I'll catch you on the flip side.